Good afternoon, Rossmore, and welcome to our Town Hall series, our virtual Town Hall series via Zoom. Today we are coming to you to discuss communications, and this is one form of communication that we are trying to reach out to residents and have an interactive forum to try and answer your questions and get feedback from residents on various topics. But today is focused on communication, and with me is Ann Peterson, our Director of Communications. And we'll be trying to cover a number of topics, provide you some information, but really we want to hear from you and have a good interactive conversation. So please put your questions in chat, or if you'd like to ask a question live, just raise your hand and the moderator will acknowledge you. So before we get started though, Ann is going to give a little background on communications and give you an overview.
Thank you, Jeff. So I wanted to talk first of all a little bit about what is part of the communications department. We have 3 departments within the communications department, and we'll start with the Rossmore News. So we publish 51 weekly newspapers and 3 special sections every year. They average 60 pages, and within those pages, just so you kind of get a sense for what we're dealing with week in and week out, we have 170 articles, columns, letters, and the club trip listings, 50 photos, 120 display ads, 130 classifieds and legals, and we deliver all of those to about a little over 6,300 homes. Altogether, our department, largely through our advertising, but also through some subscriptions outside the gate, we bring in a little over $961,000 a year in revenue. So the news is definitely our revenue generating side of the business. Rossmore TV is the second part of our department, and they're responsible for the content that you see on channel 1083. It used to be channel 28, now it's 1083, and that's because we're in high definition. We also are online on rossmoretv.com and on the Cablecast app. In terms of weekly programs, we have about 112 every week and 7 unique fitness programs. Those take up mostly our morning hours. And total, we do about 105 hours of programming. On demand, anytime you want to watch them, you can go on rossmoretv.com or on the app and watch 561 programs. And that library grows every single week. And we're also on YouTube, so you can find right now 343 videos over there. Rossmore websites, our 3 main are rossmore.com, which is the website that everyone can publicly view. There's 137 pages and over 6,500 documents. So if you're looking for an agenda, the minutes, anything of that nature for the GRF or the mutuals, you can find them housed on rossmore.com. And in an average for a month, we have a little over 10,000 page views. So it's a fairly well-visited site. MyRossmore.com is the one that we have, the portal that we have for the residents. Right now, we have a little over 3,100 active users. And they do everything from booking tea times. About 74% of all tea times are booked on this site. They buy tickets for the events, which right now accounts for a little over half of the tickets sold. And also we put out bulletins, emailed bulletins, trying to give you sort of the news in real time. And right now we have 9,269 subscriptions. And then rossmorenews.com is where we have pretty much the newspaper that you see every week, but it's in an e-edition format. And right now we have a little over 1,000 who view that every single week. So one of the things I wanted to talk about are some of the more frequently asked questions that we get. Kind of get those out of the way before we take questions from the audience. So the one that we get the most for Rossmore TV is, what is Rossmore TV Bingo? On the first Tuesday of the month at 5 o'clock on channel 1083, all of the residents can join in for a live bingo game. You can come to our office and get one of these bingo cards. They have a unique number, so this is yours. You will have to verify that you're a resident if you win a prize, but you follow along on TV, and all we do is we have special hosts that come in And they read out the numbers. As soon as you have bingo, you call in. If they verify that yes, indeed you have it, you win a prize.
So you don't just shout bingo?
We don't shout bingo.
Okay.
We'd like to, but we don't. No, you have to call in. But there are some great prizes. We have gift cards. We have the Lapidary Club will give us a donation of jewelry. The Ceramics Club will do some of their art. We get books from published writers, so it's been a very popular game. And again, it's first Tuesday of every month at 5 o'clock, and you can call, email, or even come in person to our office and get your bingo card. So that's the big one for the TV side. Over on the website side, on rossmore.com, I make a big pitch for breaking news just because this is our way of being able to give you guys all of the real-time news as it's happening. So if you come to the main homepage, scroll down a little bit, you're going to see this blue bar that says breaking news. And if you click on that, it will bring you to the actual article of information. And again, anytime something happens, like for example, today as we're taping, there's an outage up at Hillside, and so the pools had to close. And that's our way of being able to put that news in your hands, because again, the newspaper only comes out once a week. So what do you do when something happens in the middle of the week? Breaking news on rossmore.com is where you can go. MyRossmore.com is very simple to sign up. If you haven't, I want to encourage everybody to do it because this is your portal. You are the only ones who get to go in here. And it's fairly simple. You just go to myrossmore.com, or from rossmore.com, up in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see a little button that's blue that says My Rossmore. If you click on that, it takes you to a sign-in page, and all you have to do is go down to where it says click here to sign up. And there will be a page that opens that will allow you to walk through. Everybody is already pre-registered. You just have to activate that registration. One of the things I love the most that's in myrossmore.com are our emailed bulletins. And these are put out by each department. So it's everything from golf and recreation to counseling, transportation. Again, this is also another way that we're able to give you the news very quickly as it's happening. And you are allowed to sign up for the ones that you're most interested in. So if you again go to myrossmore.com, and then when you get in, you click on your preferences, it will allow you to slide any of these options so that you're able to get an emailed alert right in your inbox.
That is a function that is fantastic. I know my email at home, I get thousands of emails, and maybe one or two is something that I want to read. Mm-hmm. So this, you can select only what you want to receive. You don't have to get tons and tons of emails, right?
I love it too, yeah. And we get a lot of positive feedback from people, especially right now, transportation, because of a staffing issue, the bus schedule keeps changing. So by having those email notifications, you know every week what the schedule is going to be, so it's not a guessing game. And then for Rossmore News, I wanted to kind of highlight the e-edition. There's some really great stuff that's available in the e-edition. So you just go to rossmorenews.com and click over on the right-hand side where it says e-edition. It looks just like the weekly paper. And it's going to open you up to a page where if you select this button on the right-hand side in this toolbar that says Index, it's going to allow you to pull open in a bigger format some of the articles so that you're able to read each individual article in a larger format. You just have to click on the article on the left-hand side and you get that larger view on the right side. You also have the ability, just like you would a regular newspaper, to just use these little arrow keys to scroll through to the individual pages so you can see everything that's in the paper. Up at the top, there are some buttons, and I just wanted to draw attention to these because they're kind of your special features. So where you see the A with the minus and the A with the plus, that allows you to make the font size either bigger or smaller. We also have one that looks like a little tiny speaker, and if you click on this, it will actually read the article to you. So this has been more than a little bit of a game changer for our residents who have low vision. We also have the ability to scroll through the different pages right from the top or go back to the index. So the arrows will go back and forth, and the three little horizontal lines will take you back to the index of the sections in the paper. Here's another fun one. So off to the left-hand side, you're going to see something that says Translate To. If you pop down the window for this, you will find all the different languages that the articles can be translated to. So you can have it in Spanish, in French, German, pretty much everything that you can imagine is here. And then if you have a native language that you're more comfortable with, you're able to read the article in that language. If you pop on the one that is the social media share button, it looks like a sideways V with the little dots on the end. This is going to give you the different ways in which you're able to share articles on social media, as well as the ability to print them or to copy a link and email it to family or friends if there's an article written about you.
So with all those fantastic features, does that mean the hard copy is going to go away?
You know, that's the number one question I get asked. So I'll say it up front, no. When we talked earlier, I mentioned that we're making about a little over $961,000 a year in revenue. And a good portion of that comes from our advertising. We're very fortunate that we have a very loyal base of advertisers. This includes businesses in the area as well as classified advertisers. And because we're one of the few printed papers that still exists, we get a lot of legal notices as well. And so we depend greatly on that revenue to be able to lower our operating costs so that it's a lot more affordable for residents to get the newspaper without having to pay for it in the coupon. So for right now, the printed paper is not going away. But I do want to emphasize that we are beholden really to what goes on outside the gates. And we've already seen this happen ourselves. We were with Fricke Parks, a printing press, for over 15 years. And unfortunately, they went out of business. So as soon as they went out of business, we didn't have a choice. We had to go find a new printing press. And in doing the research, what I have discovered is that there are only 3 printers left in Northern California that can actually print the paper to our specifications and for our date of delivery. So as these printers continue to close down, we aren't going to have a choice. We could eventually be forced out of business. I would love it if we are the last newspaper to print in California. But what's important now is for us to also build up that digital side of the business, because if the printer goes away, we want the Rossmore News to continue. And so part of what we're going to be doing over the next 3 years is taking some of that revenue that we're building on one side, the print side, and shifting it over to online to build that up. So again, hopefully we reach a point where the residents are able to use one or the other interchangeably. And if we do lose print, then online will still be there.
Great. We just may be the last printed newspaper.
I'd love it.
That'd be nice.
Let's hope so. Knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we have any questions, and then we'll continue on.
So the first question we have is from Ruth A. Hearn. And her question is, how can Rossmore TV support nonpartisan, non-sectarian, open-minded discussion of topics like how can we find truth in a world of chaos and divisiveness?
So that's a Big Questions Forum question. What they do, Interfaith Council does a question every year, and they tackle that from different perspectives, and they bring in experts from different religious fields. And one of the things that we have heard is that Big Questions views itself more as spiritual and philosophical than it does truly religion. Now, what happened is a resident informed me a couple of months ago that when he was viewing what we were putting on Rossmore TV and he came across one of the Big Questions forum, he immediately realized that it had religious topics and viewpoints. And so he reached out to me and asked how that was not in violation of policy 603 or 602.3. So I went back, reviewed the policy, and talked with our station manager, George Ivanoff, and sure enough, we were in violation of that policy. I believe the former station manager agreed with Interfaith Council that this was more philosophical in nature and spiritual, but because these speakers were talking from a religious standpoint and sharing these religious perspectives, we decided that we needed to suspend the programming and take this to the policy committee meeting and ask those members if we could re-look at potentially rewriting this policy, throwing it out entirely and allowing all religious or political programming onto Rossmore TV. Or the choice also was there if they decided they wanted to leave the policy as it was. The policy committee made the decision that because these were religious viewpoints and it was religion, that the big questions forum did fall under the policy. They then made the decision that they wanted to leave the policy as it is. They felt as if there are some very controversial religious topics that are out there and definitely some controversial political topics, so that not allowing this programming on Rossmore TV they felt was in the best interest of maintaining civility for one, but also for not wading into some topics that do become points of contention and debate. Now that said, the committee is open to re-looking at it. So in about 3 to 4 months, it will come back to policy. And during that time, if residents have feelings about this, viewpoints about this decision, about keeping this policy in play, they are encouraged to write the GRF board at grb@rossmore.com. Those emails are also shared with me. We will collect all of this, and when we come back to policy in 3 months, we'll get a better sense of how the viewers feel about this, how the residents feel about this policy, and about whether or not it should be revisited.
So one of the things that comes up frequently is discussions about content. What do we communicate? What do we publish in the Rossmore News or on Rossmore TV, whether it's political, opinion, and so forth? What's the difference between Rossmore News or Rossmore TV and say, the East Bay Times?
So we do have a lot of, first off, we follow GRF policy. So there are policies that dictate what goes for programming for Rossmore TV and what goes for content for Rossmore News. And within that, there's some flexibility. There's a little bit of interpretation on my part as the managing editor for the newspaper and as the communications director that oversees the TV. But if there is a question, we always go back to that policy, and then we will ask the GRF president sometimes for clarification. But what the board has told us consistently, and what we now believe our mission to be, is that first and foremost, we are the newspaper of the residents and for the residents. So while national news is important, there are other avenues where you can get that. You can subscribe to the New York Times, you can subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, etc., and get that national news. In terms of the local news, what's happening in the Bay Area, what's happening in California, you can get that from the East Bay Times. What you can't get from any of those newspapers is what's happening here in Rossmore. So my staff from the newspaper side of the business, they cover the meetings. They cover the issues that are really important. For example, things like right now, what's happening with the insurance crisis and how that's impacting home sales. They are looking at stories about the people who live here, and we have some really great, fabulous people who have fabulous stories to tell. And in addition to that, we take in articles from all the different clubs and organizations here in Rossmore and allow them to publicize about their events. That's what fills your 60 pages. There is some additional content in there. We do have a little room for some fun stuff, like we do Writer's Corner, so there's still a forum every other week for our fiction writers to have a chance to have their say. We have a couple cartoonists who will turn in cartoons. So we haven't completely shut down the quote-unquote fun side of the business, if you will. In terms of the political columns, that was a big point of contention a year ago. We used to allow each of the clubs to run one column a week. Unfortunately, they became very time-consuming. They needed labor-intensive in terms of trying to fact-check them. And it was starting to draw down time on staff for the other things that we really felt we needed to be getting done. That's the club news, the news about the meetings and the issues. So policy committee did decide we were only going to do one a week, and that has been working. So, and everybody seems to be doing pretty well with that. So there is, like I said, a space in here where you can still do a little bit of the kinds of things you might see outside, but a lot less. Over on the Rossmore TV side of the business, so what's interesting there is this again is really programming that is about and for our residents. So we do oftentimes film some of our events, a lot of our entertainment programs. We have speakers in that talk about topics like legal issues that affect seniors, how to age in place, things that deal with health and how people can, live a healthy lifestyle. And so as long as, again, it falls within the parameters of what's allowed by GRF policy, we look at everything and then we make sure we have the staff to cover it. So again, trying to keep that coupon cost low. We do only have 2 full-time and 1 regular part-time member on our staff, and then we have part-time on contract videographers. Altogether, those individuals add up to about 1 full-time position a year. So we can't actually tape everything, but the staff has done a great job of taping quite a bit and turning it around really very quickly.
They tape a lot. Any other questions?
We just had one more from a Dorothy Pritchett. The question is, will the policy of not recording any religious programming pertain to any programs sponsored by the Interfaith Council of Rossmore? For example, programs sponsored by the Diversity Conscious Committee.
So I do want to emphasize the policy, enforcing that policy is not about an individual group. So it's not about Interfaith Council. It's about the specific program. So if the program that you bring to Rossmore TV does not have religious viewpoints and religious themes, it would still be allowed on Rossmore TV. I should preface, it also can't have politics in terms of bipartisan politics that are outside the gate. Politics about Rossmore would be different. And really what it will come down to is talking with George Ivanoff and Brendan Kelly on the Rossmore TV staff about what is involved with the program, showing them the different things that are going to be in that program. You kind of script out what's going to happen in a show before you do it. And as long as it's not in violation of that policy, then yes, the program would still be allowed. If there is a question as to whether or not it starts to dip into religion or politics, then it would be brought to me. It could also be brought to Jeff, and it could be brought all the way up to GRF President Leanne Hamaji. Ultimately, Leanne, as the president of the GRF board, would make the decision as to whether or not something is allowed to be broadcast on Rossmore TV.
So with all of this information, I mean, there's the stuff, there's each individual mutual, some have websites, some have newsletters, clubs have websites or newsletters, all of the information in the Rossmore News, on the TV. How do people keep us straight?
Well, we hope that we're doing a pretty good job of
There's
at
a
least.
lot of information out there.
We're hoping we're doing a pretty good job of getting the information out there. I have had some people say, wow, it's really tough with a 60-page paper. It takes them all week to get through it, and then the next one's coming out. We do try to prioritize the news in terms of what affects the community at large. So when it comes to the newspaper, we're trying to put the really important stories that affect the most residents on the front page. And then as you go through the paper, page 2, page 3, page 4, especially those early A section pages, you're going to see a lot of what I would call sort of the harder news, the information that affects the most people. Once you get back to the B section, now you get the fun stuff. It's not to say that it's not important, because it is, but this is more where you're going to see like arts and leisure, your entertainment, your concerts, the art galleries that are up around the community. Yep. And that's also where you'll see our classified ads, which are equally important, I know. But yes, it's a lot of information to consume.
So if I'm a new resident trying to figure this this community of Rossmore out, where do I get started?
Okay, so right now we have this fun thing. It's called the Newcomer's Binder. If you are a new resident and you have not gotten one of these, please go to the Gateway Administration building. That's the building located right behind the clubhouse, and pick up one of these binders from the front desk. In it, you are going to find everything you need to know about Rossmore. All of these pages, some of them have tips, a lot of them have information about the individual departments, including when they're open, what their phone number is, what the website is. It's kind of your handy-dandy Bible to what Rossmore's all about. Now here's the fun part. This is a new project that we're undertaking this year. We want to replace this binder with something that looks a little bit more like this. So it's a thinner magazine. It will be full color, and it will have the same information that you saw in this binder. It'll just be transferred over here. This is something that we feel will be a little easier for the residents to hold on to. And more importantly, we know that a lot of residents have moved in and things have changed over the years. So what our game plan is to distribute this magazine every single September so that you will always have the updated information
on
in
your
your
coffee
drawer.
table.
Exactly, right where you can grab it anytime you want it. So these will come out in mid-September. Everyone who has a Rossmore News delivered to their home will get one. Those who do not, who have opted for the online paper, you'll have two choices. You can come in either to the Rossmore News office or to Gateway and pick up a copy of the magazine, or you'll even be able to go online because we will have a PDF version of this on myrossmore.com and on rossmorenews.com or rossmore.com. And then in addition, then what will happen is this magazine will be distributed to all of the new residents who come in going forward.
Yeah, this is a fantastic project that really will hopefully keep information right in front of people and easily accessible.
Yes. And the best part is it won't cost anyone any money. We have already sold the ads we need for this magazine to get it out to everyone essentially for free.
Excellent. Always good. So I have heard just craziest rumors all the time. A resident will call up and ask a question because they heard it from their neighbor or from somebody at the gym or somebody else and believe that that information was accurate. How do we address rumors?
Okay, so first off, I literally could have a whole nother full-time job just trying to shoot down all the rumors that happen in Rossmore. So as a sort of overarching policy, we don't respond to every rumor. Again, it would become a full-time job if we tried to do that. However, if we start to hear prevalent that this is spreading to a lot of different people, and it is one of those topics that's going to affect the community overall, we do tend to sometimes jump in on those and write the story, write the article in the newspaper that will get the real information out there. And I would say that in a given month, we do that probably 5 or 6 times. So it is a part of what we do. What I will say is this: please don't believe a rumor that a neighbor told you. Don't take it at face value. If something doesn't sound right, ask the question. You can reach out to my department, news@rossmore.com, anytime and ask a question. If we don't know the answer, we will find it for you. But it is always better to make sure you have the real facts
Absolutely.
than to start spreading something, especially if you say to yourself, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
I think Deborah has some questions coming in.
We have one more question from Carol Weed, who is asking, will you tape a nonpartisan Walnut Creek City Council candidate forum?
No, we will not. So even though it's nonpartisan, it is politics from outside the gate, and the GRF Policy Committee at just the last meeting confirmed that they do not have a problem with us doing a candidates forum for Rossmore candidates, meaning those running for the GRF board. But we will not do outside candidates, even if they're nonpartisan, because they do not want to open it up to politics outside the gate.
Okay, folks, we're here to answer your questions. So if you do have additional questions, please either raise your hand or type it in the chat.
Okay, I do have a few general questions coming in.
Okay.
How do I submit a letter to the editor?
That's a fun one. Okay, so letters to the editor is probably the thing that I'll say, and put air quotes, most fun. Just because on the one hand, it is a great way for the residents to be able to share their opinions. On the other, it runs the gamut. Everyone thinks that they can write just about anything in a letter to the editor. So let's start by saying up front, if you have a personal issue with your neighbor, please don't write a letter to the editor. If you have a personal issue with a decision that your board has made, absolutely, send in a letter to the editor. Keep individual people out of it. It isn't about attacking individual people. It's about attacking decisions that are made or even praising them. You can do both criticism and praise with letters to the editor. So the way that it works, these are also governed by GRF policy. So letters to the editor can be up to 250 words. They do have to be on topics that are germane to Rossmore, or if you're responding to a political column, then politics would be allowed. Other than that, you can't tell us who you're voting for president or for the city of Walnut Creek any longer, though the letters have to be confined to what is written in the paper, or again, topics that are completely germane to Rossmore. You can submit those to news@rossmore.com. They are due by noon every Thursday, the week before they come out in the newspaper. We may be a weekly newspaper, but our deadlines are pretty early in order to get the paper out to our printer, which is out in Tracy. We do also have holiday deadlines, so sometimes those deadlines move forward a little. What happens is I edit all of the letters. If I have any questions, I'll email you, but otherwise we run all of the letters that come into the paper with one exception. Sometimes a topic is a hot button issue and we may get 60 to 80 letters. For example, during COVID, when we opened up the golf course to walkers, that's the most letters I've ever seen. We had 98 in 1 week. In those cases, it tends to be that I will go through all of the letters and look for different viewpoints. So we try to get as many different viewpoints into the paper, and then on a first come, first serve, I will run them. So not everything will get in there, but everybody's viewpoint should be sort of encapsulated in the letters that we are publishing. What I will not publish are those that violate the policy. So you have to, again, be very careful. No personal attacks. No inflammatory comments, nothing that would be libelous. If you're putting facts in your letter, please be sure you also include a website so that I can verify the facts. Opinion and facts are different. If I can go online and look up a fact and find out that it's wrong, that's a fact. If it's an opinion and it's not something I can search online to find out if it's true or false, then it's opinion, and that's allowed in a letter.
So I say a lot that Rossmore really is governed by the residents. The GRF board is made up of residents, the committees are residents, the mutuals each are governed by residents, and those resident boards and committees really do want to hear from their fellow residents. So it is important that not only are we communicating with you, but the Residents Forum at meetings is a way for those folks that are governing to also hear your opinion, and they want to hear those opinions as well. Any other questions?
Yes, we have a few here. Next up, we have a question from Siva. Siva asks, do we have a single source that lists all the events in Rossmore on a monthly basis? For example, the movies are listed on a monthly basis, but what about all the other events?
So before COVID, we actually ran a calendar in the newspaper every single week that had most of the events. Not everything, but most of them. What we found, though, was that the computer software program that we were using were putting those events in from the time that a club or organization made a reservation. So some folks were showing up for a bridge game, for example, at 9, even though it didn't actually start until 9:30. And it had become impossible to say the very least, because we were having to manually go in there and check every single one of these events to be sure that was the right time. It was too much time, very time consuming. So as part of this bigger conversation, as we're talking about replacing GenArc, which is the software system we use throughout the Valley in all of the departments for everything from accounting to work orders, we also talked about changing the software that we use for reservations and making sure that we have the capability now to publish a calendar that has all the events for everything that are in those various clubhouses. And so right now we are in the process of looking at the different software and identifying what will work best. We're also looking at the same time for a new software, kind of an all-in-one box, if you will, for myrossmore.com, so that we're able to expand out. We would love to reach a point where people will be able to go on myrossmore.com, and if they have clubs or interests, they will be able to select what they're interested in and get the information just for those clubs and interests. So they'd actually be able to tailor a calendar that works for them. So you'll have sort of two viewpoints. One will be that all-inclusive calendar. It'll be online and available eventually at the recreation department, or again, to sort of bullet point it down to the things that you're most interested in. We are asking for patience. Trying to do something of this magnitude, replacing an entire software system, is very time intensive and is going to take a lot of training. So I anticipate that we're going to start to see some of these changes in January of next year, and we hope by June of next year, most of these changes will have been rolled out.
All right, next up we have Maxine Topper asks, I enjoy reading the newspaper on the Technavia app. Is someone interested in trying that? Can someone on your staff help them figure it out?
Yes. So we actually hold office hours on Friday from about 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where residents would be able to call in, make an appointment, and we can walk you through. We started with Friday only, but I realize that's not always convenient for everyone. So if you call our office, our front desk at 925-988-7800, or email newsdesk, that's NEWSDESK, all one word, at rossmore.com, you will be able to request a time. Let us know what's a good appointment time for you to be able to come in and work with us. We can also do this over Zoom if you prefer to do it virtually, but we can walk you through how to set up the app, how to work with the e-edition. I gave you kind of a brief overview of some of the options. There's a lot with the e-edition, and we're always happy to show you how all of that works. We probably get 5 or 6 a week who are interested in learning how to do this. And what we quickly find is after we've walked them through and helped them to set up the app, most of them come back and say they love it. And so we would be happy to show everybody. We do hope that in the future, once we get past some of our bigger initiatives, like trying to replace the newcomers binder, trying to get the new myrossmore.com up and running, once those are done, we're hoping to sort of do a road show, if you will, go around to different clubs and talk to them about what's available, both with myrossmore.com and with the rossmorenews.com e-edition and the app, so that everyone can start to take advantage and learn what's out there in case they're interested in trying out the online world.
Excellent.
So we have a few more questions here. It says, my club would like to promote a special upcoming event. How does my club submit an article about this event in the news?
Great. So the first thing I would suggest is before your event comes up, reach out to us. We have press guidelines that we can email you that walks you through things like what are the deadlines, what's the word count, what should an article look like. It just kind of gives you the lay of the land. And then what we do for the Rossmore News for events that are coming up for all the clubs and organizations is we allow you to publicize those for 3 consecutive weeks. So, for example, if you have an event that's the last week of the month, you would turn in the article a week before the publication date, before that first week of the month. That way it would run 3 times before you get to that event. There are very few restrictions outside of things like we do follow AP style, so we're not a newsletter. We are an official newspaper with real advertising, so we do need all of the articles written in third person. That's things like he, she, they, residents, that kind of thing, instead of I or you. And again, there are some word limits, so reach out and get those guidelines. But aside from that, if you are an official club here in Rossmore, we absolutely would love to include you in the newspaper.
Great.
So recently I heard from a GRF board meeting that there's something about a marketing group ad hoc committee. Could you tell me anything about this task force, and are residents able to join this task force?
So we're in the process right now. At last month's board meeting, we talked with the GRF board about how we feel it's important, especially with what we're seeing with the insurance crisis and what we're seeing with the difficulty in getting financing for home sales, to take a little bit more of an active role in helping to market Rossmore. In the past, we've relied very heavily on the real estate agents to help us with that. But since we're now faced with these new challenges, we think that GRF should play a more active role. And the board agreed. So what they decided is they really want to help us figure out what's our brand. What is Rossmore? Are we a senior living community, a retirement community, an active adult community? Figure out what that brand is. And then from there, talk about who are we trying to market to and what sorts of opportunities should we be looking at for marketing. So in response to that, the board has decided to create a task force, and we will be discussing with them at the June board meeting a charter that essentially will set up this task force to work for 6 months with 7 members. Some of them will be GRF board members, but they will open it up to applications from any resident who's interested in sitting on the board. I realize that 7 is not a big number, so the other thing I want to put out there is if you have ideas, things that you think will work, or you want to share the story about what brought you here to Rossmore, please reach out to me, A. Peterson, that's APETRSON at rossmore.com. Let me know your story, because we would like that to be a factor. Part of the conversation as we're talking about marketing and how we're going to be able to help others outside the gate know what Rossmore is all about.
This really is an exciting initiative. I think the question right now of what is Rossmore? Is it a active senior adult community? Is it a premier active senior adult community? Is it affordable community? Being able to look at all of the parameters and try and define what Rossmore is will be a great conversation to have. And we do want to, the committee have lots of input, and this will be a long-term process, so it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen with just a small group. There'll be a lot of discussions, but it's an important initiative right now, so it'll be an exciting discussion coming up.
And the other thing that comes into that as well is we think that it's really important that the folks that we have move into Rossmore, we want these to be residents who will stay with us for a while. What we would hate is for somebody to move in here and 2 years later say, this isn't what I thought it was. And so I think that's another reason why we really want to own that message. We want to be able to share with prospective residents what Rossmore is all about. So this is the community that they'll move into and be exactly what they thought it was going to be, or close to it.
Yep.
Okay, next question. So some sort of budget operating financials in relation to the Rossmore TV. It says, why doesn't Rossmore TV have commercials? Wouldn't that money help pay for their operating costs?
Good question.
It is a good question. Probably a lot of people don't understand what Rossmore TV is. So we're actually considered a community access channel. That means that we are only broadcasting here in Rossmore, and we have it included on everybody's channel on 1083 through Comcast, through the bulk agreement deal that we have with Comcast. So in addition to getting a discounted rate for your cable and internet, what you're also getting is channel 1083. Now, to be a community access channel, that means we cannot do any advertising at all. We can do the post-it slides that you see to promote events that are happening here in Rossmore, but nothing that would be a fee-based service for things like businesses outside of the community. Now, if we decided we didn't want to be a community access channel, that we wanted to sell these commercials instead, for starters, we would need to increase our staffing by 2 people to bring in sales reps who could actually sell those ads. And we would also now have to pay for channel 1083. And to put it into perspective, most channels on the outside start at $500,000 and go all the way up to $1 million. So the trade-off is no commercials, but we don't have to pay that $500,000 to $1 million to be on TV. I think it's a
forward
pretty
to commercials anyway.
Exactly.
So not only is the Comcast deal for residents the bulk deal where you're getting the premier lineup, you're getting the broadband, but there's community benefits too. There's the Wi-Fi, and there's the channel, not channel 28 anymore.
We all do it.
in HD. So it really is a fantastic deal that we have.
And I think some people may not know about this, but we also have Comcast reps that come here to Rossmore at the Fireside Room. They're there on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 10 to noon. So if you have questions with how Comcast is working for you, or a question with if you have an additional service and you have a question with your bill, go down to the Fireside Room and talk with them. I can tell you every resident who does that usually gets a resolution very quickly.
Much better than calling the 800 number.
Yes.
Yes, they understand the Rossmore bulk agreement and what you're supposed to be getting and are very helpful, for sure.
Okay, next question is, if I go on vacation, how do I pause my newspaper?
That's a great one too. I hope that when we have the new software rollout that we'll have a feature that you'll be able to do this online. But for right now, all you need to do is call us or email us to let us know the dates that you're going to be gone. I'll give you those numbers again. The front desk is 925-988-7800, and the email is newsdesk@rossmore.com. Just let us know again what dates you're going to be gone, and we will stop the newspaper. You are welcome to continue reading it while you're away on rossmorenews.com. If you plan to be away for more than a couple of weeks, then usually what we do is we ask that you call us when you return, and we will restart your newspaper. The other thing that we also offer, if you have a missed newspaper, so our news carriers are really very good, but sometimes they miss a house or they'll miss an entire building. If that happens, also please call us. We do have someone on staff who will deliver the paper to you Thursday afternoon if we missed you.
And that's not you, right?
Well, sometimes it is. Depends on how many people we have off.
So there's currently a bill in process that would potentially break apart bulk agreements with Comcast. A question here by Siva is, isn't there a new bill that may affect our ability to get community cable? Can you expand on that?
So there is a discussion that is going around. This is not something new to the cable industry. It has popped up before in relation to bulk agreements. We have been in communication with Comcast and discussed the potential impact with them. And they are not concerned at this point and do not believe that that would have any impact on our bulk agreement. They are continuing across the country to make bulk agreement arrangements. So we are monitoring it for sure, but at this point it is in a discussion phase and it does not appear to be a threat to our current agreement.
Great. The next question we have here is, a couple of years ago, I recall that the newspaper was going to not be delivered or pause to be delivered. Whatever happened with that?
So we got very lucky. We went to the GRF board and explained the situation we were having with that. We were trying to compete with outside jobs like Uber, DoorDash, and what we were quickly finding is that when they were offering a higher rate than we were and a more flexible schedule, a lot of our news carriers were going that direction to be deliverers. And so we went to the board, priced out what we thought we needed to pay them in terms of a salary, and we moved their wages up. It was significant. It was a $3 an hour increase, but it was definitely the starting point for turning things around. We also took a more strategic approach. We looked at where we were most successful with our workforce, and we realized that it was either the kids who were in college, not high school, college, or it was the folks who had retired, especially those who were in industries that I'll say where you walked a lot. For example, I have a retired postal carrier who told me that after he was done with his mail routes, he was quickly putting on a couple pounds because he was sitting around the house. And what he wanted was sort of that job where he could get out one day a week and continue getting some exercise. And then he helped to recruit. He went to his gym and he said, you know what, you're only coming in the gym one day a week. Why don't you come walk Rossmore? Great hills, lots of houses.
That's good exercise.
And we have had a lot of success with that. So we do have, we were a lot more targeted with the kinds of folks we were trying to hire. But my appreciation goes out to the board for recognizing it was going to take a higher salary to be able to compete and get that consistency. As anyone who has had a missed newspaper more than once or twice knows, getting folks in here and keeping them in here is really a big deal. Especially if you live up in like Ptarmigan, where the houses are kind of all over. Having a news carrier learn that route is really a very big deal.
Okay, and our last question I have here is, my club would like to submit event flyers. I see them on TV. How does that work?
So Rossmore TV has what's called Post-its, and if you come into our office or you email us and request a form, we can send it to you. And what you do is you fill out that form and let us know the particulars about the event you have coming up. You can attach an event flyer, and we have a member on our staff, and what she does is she takes all of that information and she designs a very beautiful slide that has the information, and we air those in between programming. So top of the hour, new program's about to start, you may see the slide with your club's information show up on the screen. And again, it's just one other sort of new way to be able to reach out to people and let them know what's going on with your clubs and your activities. So we definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. We have our front staff can walk you through it if you've never done it before. And again, there's a fairly simple form to fill out.
Great. Well, I want to thank Ann and Deborah for moderating. And this has been, again, one of our forums where we're trying to communicate with the community and share a lot of information. That was a great deal of information there, and how you could access it, and a variety of topics throughout the last several months regarding Rossmore in general and Golden Rain Foundation. Hopefully you have found the series helpful, and if you would like to go back and look at any of the topics, you can find them.
And 2 locations, rossmoretv.com has them on demand, and you can also find them on YouTube, on our Rossmore TV YouTube page.
Great. So we would love to hear from you. Any feedback that you have on this series or other means to communicate with the community, please do let us know. We'd appreciate any feedback you might have. Any last words?
No, just, I've said this many times, my marketing pitch now. Working in Rossmore, living in Rossmore, it's a whole different world in here. And I value and appreciate the fact that we all work together, not just from a staff standpoint, but especially on the Rossmore News and the Rossmore TV side. We get to interact with residents all the time, and our community works because everyone works together. So really very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Great. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.